All right, guys, welcome to the first episode of the Strong Father Co podcast. I am excited to be back on the mic after what feels like a very long time off. I'm assuming a lot of people listening, maybe most people listening, are people that listen to the Jason Khalipa podcast and, have kind of like followed along and are here now that I've, started something on my own, which I'm super, super excited about. But yeah, the podcast is something that I enjoyed doing a lot in my time with Train Hard and Jason, and I really, really miss it. But it's funny. I've felt so much resistance to getting started, and we can talk about that a little bit because it's been one of the more interesting parts of diving into entrepreneurship and trying to build something on your own that is has been difficult to do, but has been a fun and a learning experience over the last 90 days. But yeah, first episode here. I think a lot of these, or some of these, especially in the beginning, are just going to be me, which I think is part of a reason why I had so much resistance on getting this started. There's a lot of pressure in thinking that you can babble for 45, 60 minutes. We'll see how long this ends up being, and people will actually want to listen and you'll say something worthwhile listening to. So I think I've definitely put a lot of pressure on what I want this podcast to be. And that has made it very difficult to just get started. But that being said, there was an episode that I recorded on the Jason Khalipa podcast. I remember there was just one week where he wasn't able to make it and no one else was able to make it. MDV wasn't able to make it. And I recorded a solo episode and I really enjoyed it. I basically just answered questions on that one, which I don't necessarily have a bunch of questions that I have to answer here. But I remember that going pretty well. I remember getting some messages of people that enjoyed that. So going to give this a shot, little solo episode here. I want to talk about a few things that are on my mind and that are just kind of on my radar. I think that protein, carbs, people under fueling in terms of like some valuable stuff to share. I'll get that a little bit later in the episode, but I think there's some really interesting research. And also in launching this coaching program, I think I've learned a lot in terms of like what some of the common pitfalls a lot of guys seem to fall under. And it's funny because so much of it falls under actually not eating enough. So I'll get into the science of that and what I think are some valuable takeaways for anyone that's listening. There's also going to be a lot more background noise to this podcast. That segues into some life updates. It's been a little chaotic last couple of weeks. So fill you in on a little bit of story if you haven't been following along social media. So recently we went on a quick trip to New York, which was an incredible experience. I got to go to New York and spend a day with Gary Vaynerchuk, who's someone that I've really respected and very much appreciated the content that he puts out. So as part of launching Strong Father Co., I just so happened to start using the platform that he had put out to sell digital products like the ebook that I had started with. So as part of signing up for that platform, I was entered into this challenge where the top 10 revenue generators were going to be invited out to spend a day with Gary at his office in New York, but also 5 wildcard winners who made over a certain threshold amount and were then picked randomly to go join. So I was picked as one of the wildcard winners, which was very, very cool. I got a chance to go out there, ask him some questions about Strong Father Co. And it was a very fun, kind of surreal experience. Got to meet some incredible entrepreneurs that are doing very, very well in the digital space. It was funny because I was one of the only guys. It was a lot of women, which was interesting. And I was the only fitness coach. So it was a lot of people who do coaching and content around real estate, around medicine. There's like a functional doctor. She was super cool that, does digital products like guides and stuff on how to, deal with flu season with more holistic medicine, just really cool stuff, and really cool people that I got to connect with. But anyway, we were going on this like last minute 2-3 day trip to New York. So one thing that we had kind of like talked about doing was there were a couple tiles in our bathroom, well, in the guest bathroom, which is where the kids have their bath, that was coming up a little bit. So you can kind of like step on the tile and when you stepped on it, it moved, which tile isn't supposed to do if it's appropriately adhered to the ground, obviously. So seemed like a super minor fix. We're good friends with our contractor. He's actually the one that built out our awesome garage gym, and we've gotten pretty close to him and his family, which has been super cool because, you have a contractor that can come in and just kind of check something out, give you his 2 cents. But he was like, yeah, super simple. I can come in and lift a couple tiles up, regrout them. It's probably just the house settling. We live on a pier and beam home, so 20 years old, definitely realistic for it to maybe see some slight shifting. And because tile doesn't really have any give, it's very common for tile to come up and just need to be regrouted. So we were thinking, hey, perfect, 2-3 days out of the house, he can go in there and do that stuff completely undisturbed. We don't have to, mess around with the kids' routine because they were going to stay with my parents. All good. So we go on our trip, so much fun. Just me and Ariel went because, again, the kids were with my parents. It was like a really fun. I love our kids, obviously, but I love spending one-on-one time with Ariel. Something that, I definitely try and talk a lot about is how one of the biggest unlocks that we had as parents was being completely on the same page and realizing the importance of putting our relationship first and never letting the kids be the priority, since, us being the priority is actually, ironically, the best thing we could do for the kids. So having a lot of fun on this trip, being able to spend some one-on-one time with Ariel. It's funny, like even just going through the airport, getting on the flight, like just the little things become so fun, and it becomes something that you really appreciate and don't take for granted when you're able to do it without the distraction and the attention that the kids obviously need when it's the four of us. And again, I'm very much against the culture of like in any way representing our kids as an inconvenience or as something that, we don't want to be around at all times. But at the same time, it is very, very nice to have our one-on-one time. So we're having this really fun trip to New York. Great flight, easy. We get there. I'm going to meet, someone that I've looked up to for a long time, like super positive, like vibes are high. Vibes are an all-time high. We were staying by Hudson Yards in Manhattan, which if anyone's been to Manhattan is a beautiful, like really, really high-end area. They have a beautiful, like, it's funny to say a beautiful mall because it's a mall, but it's like a really nice mall and like a bunch of cool restaurants. And so we were walking through, we had some ice cream, we had some sushi. So everything is just like, we're like going through pictures of our kids and having just the one of the best like one-on-one dates, I guess you can call it, in a long time. And our contractor's like, hey, can you talk? The first bad sign. So we FaceTime because we were like, what's going on? I just want to know. And it just so happens that as he picked up the tiles, they found some pretty gnarly water damage, some pretty gnarly mold, and it looked really bad. And there was no end in sight. So he kept picking up more and more tiles. Originally, it was like 6 total of these like big tiles that he was going to regrout because those are the only ones that were coming up. But even beyond that, he just kept picking up tile and kept seeing more and more water damage. So even at that point, it didn't seem as bad as it ended up being. But yeah, that definitely put a damper on things. But we were like, hey, it's fine. Like, these things happen. We've been very fortunate in the house. We've been there for 5 years, haven't had anything too bad happen. So, this is just kind of, comes with the territory of being a homeowner. And if anything, at that point, we were like, hopefully it can still get fixed while we're away. Maybe we have to the extra weekend because we had left on a Wednesday. We were coming back on a Friday. But by Monday, we should be back home, no problem. Long story short, the next day, while I'm at the Scary V event, Ariel continued to get updates from our contractor, and it just kept going from like bad to worse. There was water damage that went all the way into the closet. It went up the wall that separates like our bathroom and the kids, or the guest bathroom and the kids' room. So that wall was going to have to go. They honestly couldn't find an end to the water damage, and it looked like it had been there for a long time. And there's no way we would have known if we didn't start picking up the tiles. So all came as a surprise to us. It came as a surprise to our contractor because he definitely wasn't expecting it. So, we're putting out fires, like trying to figure out what next steps are, so on and so forth. And now, without boring you with the rest of the details, we are, and this is why I don't have my usual background if you're used to the podcast with like the flag and in my office. We're living in my sister's house, who was kind enough to rent us out her house for a month, maybe more, because the water damage went all the way down to the actual, because we're on a pier and beam home, whatever like the foundation studs are. So pretty bad, pretty extensive, and we're going to be out of the house for the not foreseeable future, but like a month, maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months. I don't know. I try and be optimistic about this stuff. So hopefully just a month. And it's definitely wasn't in our bingo, on our bingo card to not be at home for this long. It's been an adjustment for the kids. It's been an adjustment for us. And all of that to say, because I think that started with, there's going to be more background noise on this podcast because my office now isn't separate to the house like it is back home. We're all in the same place. The kids just got here and they're not necessarily quiet. I'm actually surprised they haven't stormed in here. So it's all been a little bit of an adjustment for everyone, but we're taking it in stride. And I joke around that I think Ariel, my wife, is behind this because she's been bugging me to get that bathroom remodeled literally for 3 years. And now we have to remodel the bathroom, obviously, because we're, it's down to the studs. So she's getting, the vanity she wanted and the, changing it into like a bathroom closet. And we're going to move back into that room. We're like rearranging the whole house, taking advantage of the fact that, we're making this fix. So she got what she wanted. So the conspiracy theory is that she was waking up every night in the middle of the night and like, putting some water through the through the cracks in the grout to make sure that she got what she wanted. But yeah, it's been an experience, but we're trying to stay positive. And honestly, like we have stayed positive because I think in the grand scheme of things, and the lesson in perspective here is that everyone's healthy, everyone's here. We have an incredible support system here with family close by. We never had to spend a night in a hotel. We moved right into my sister's house. My sister's been incredible and has allowed us to stay here. We've made it, feel very comfortable as it can be without being home. And yeah, it's been good, but it's just been that plus starting a new business, plus, the kind of financial pressure that comes with being an entrepreneur, which is something that I always knew I wasn't like necessarily, I wouldn't say like not well equipped for, but something that personality wise is not something that I like. I like stability. I like things to be very, I don't like uncertainty. I don't like change. And so to go from a very stable, honestly, very, very good job, to something where now, I have an idea for what I want to do and who I want to serve and how I want to do it, but having to learn what that's going to look like month to month from a financial perspective, knowing that I am the provider and breadwinner for this family has been, I'd be lying if I said hasn't been stressful. Having said that, it's been also incredible. The support that I've gotten both from just like messages and people excited, a lot of people from the Train Hard community, just wishing me the best once they found out that I was going to go do things on my own, like all of that. And I'm sure that the people that have been supportive are also the people listening to this podcast. So I do want to say like a very, very genuine thank you. And my goal with this podcast, with the emails that I sent out, with the coaching that I do, with the content that I put out, is honestly to serve that community. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned from the likes of Gary Vaynerchuk, Alex Hormozy, a lot of the guys that I really look up to in the business space is that, I'm leading with the very, very genuine intention to do right by the people that have chosen to be a part of this community. And by a part of this community, I mean that like you're listening to this podcast, you get my emails, you watch my content, you may never have any interest in a training ebook that I sell or one-on-one coaching, which I'm super fired up about. But that doesn't exclude you when I say about this community, because when I say this community, I'm talking about everyone that is in any way, shape, or form just a part of this little ecosystem I'm building. And I know that if I pour everything that I have into serving that community with the information that I can put out, the motivation, if you want to call it that, with just sharing what I have going on as a dad of two young kids that is probably dealing with a lot of the headaches and challenges that everyone listening to deals with, right? Like, who that's a homeowner doesn't have a story about the thing breaking down or the unexpected repair, or, you know, the headaches with insurance and trying to deal with that around, you know, job being stressful and the kids having sleep regressions and getting sick and wanting to do your own training and your own thing. Like, we're all going through exactly the same thing. It might look different, and there might be seasons that aren't as chaotic as others, but I know that nothing about what I am going through now is unique. And I think that we don't have access to a lot of like normal people sharing that stuff, you know? Like, I think a lot of people that put out content are, not to say that I don't want to be very successful someday, but are kind of like so successful that they're almost a level detached from what I think is just like, you know, us regular Joes that are, you know, trying to make, and, you know, trying to make the most of the cards that we're dealt and have fun doing it and train for some cool races and get super jacked and be really good dads and really good husbands. So that's why I hope that, like, sharing the stories that I share and the lessons that I've learned from it is a way that I can truly serve this community. And I do plan to have guests on. You know, I already sent Dennis a text message. I don't know if he responded yet, but I would love to have Dennis on. If you guys, you know, and I assume a lot of you have listened and probably missed the home team episodes on the Jason Khalipa podcast were next level. Those were so fun. And I know that, like me, going on these spiels on my own, hopefully are entertaining and valuable. But I know that having the likes of Dennis, and I messaged Jason, I messaged MDB, those guys have open invites to come on here. I left on great terms. I love everything Train Hard is doing. I think the way the Train Hard Men's Club has exploded is really cool to see. The value of guys getting together shoulder to shoulder is incredibly valuable. And I love that Jason is taking Train Hard in that direction specifically and going all in on that. So yeah, I would love to have them on and, you know, have our usual conversations and debates, and, you know, I can give the big guy a hard time. I'm sure you guys miss that. I know I miss it. So definitely have plans to have those guys on the podcast in the future. But for now, it being the first episode, I wanted to give you guys kind of an update on where we're at, why my background is different. That was kind of the long story of, you know, the water damage that I'm still convinced my wife is behind. And yeah, I'm sure everyone has kind of a story there. For anyone that does happen to be, and I'm sure there are going to be some people, I'm making the assumption that most of you here, like, know who I am, and, you know, I've listened to me on the Jason Khalipa podcast for a long time. But I've been in the fitness space now for over a decade. It's the only thing I've done, and I genuinely love it, and will never do something not related to fitness. Well, I'll never say never, but I hope I never do something not related to fitness. I worked for kind of like the Jason Khalipa brand umbrella for 7 years, held many positions there in sales and then in marketing, was a big part of the NC Fit Collective when that was a thing. You know, talked to gym owners a lot, really spent a lot of time in that space, then transitioned to chief marketing officer, and was so proud of the Train Hard brand that we built there and the role that I played in that. It's honestly one of the most fulfilling things that I've done in my, like, professional career up until now, where I'm super excited about building Strong Father Co. in this brand that is mine and mine alone. But building Train Hard and helping, you know, build the foundation for what I think is an incredible brand doing incredible things now was super fun. But, you know, it just came a time where I was wanting something a little bit more challenging, maybe, is the right word. Not that that job got the job got comfortable. I think that it's perfectly fair to say that, and that's by no means a dig at Jason and the relationship that I had with him there. I enjoyed working with Jason for every single year that I was there. But and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. There just comes a point where you feel like, given the direction that where the company you're at is going, given like what your role is in that moment, it just feels like you're not growing anymore. And that was always very, very important to me. And not even from like a financial perspective, but just from a like taking on new challenges and seeing your efforts directly translate into wins. So that was a big reason. And I had always like had this like little inkling in the back of my mind that I wanted, that it would be cool. I think everyone does, right? Like everyone, I don't know if fantasizes is the right word, but everyone maybe daydreams about doing something on their own. And I was very fortunate in that, at the beginning of 2025, I spoke to Jason and Matt, who is the president at Train Hard NC Fit, and I was like, hey, like I want to start taking on some clients on the side, want to be fully transparent. This is just something that I want to do and experiment with. Like I've always enjoyed coaching. I've enjoyed coaching at a CrossFit gym. I've enjoyed helping people with nutrition. Like I genuinely love being able to help and serve. And I love fitness. I love geeking out about all things nutrition and training. Programming Flex for Train Hard was such a fun creative outlet for me because I learned so much about, the science of creating effective workouts and blending that with the art of creating a program that is fun and engaging, because I do think those are two very different things. I think in the one hand, there are workouts and programming that, like, according to the science, is the most effective way to get faster, get stronger, get fitter. But I think that there's an art to making those principles and delivering those principles in a way where people are going to enjoy the training that they're doing. And I think that that's such a big part of the equation, that programming the bodybuilding track for Train Hard just 10x'd the passion that I have for like writing workouts and putting together training programs. Combine that with just the love that I've had with like coaching people and coaching people one-on-one. Like when I was a CrossFit coach, there was nothing that I loved more than the clients that would take me up on like asking me questions and wanting additional advice and what should I do about this? What should I do about that? So that all made me want to, at the beginning of 2025, ask for, just, I guess, permission, or making sure that there were no, no conflicts of interest per se, and me taking on some one-on-one clients at the time. And NC Fit, Train Hard, Jason, Matt were super cool about it and had no problem with me doing that on the side. So I did that, and I took on a couple clients. At the time, it was not something that, Train Hard was interested in doing, so it kind of made sense. And that gave me so much confidence and made it so clear that this was something that I wanted to do on a bigger scale. And that grew as the year went on. So as 2025 went on, that like little inkling of wanting to build something out on your own just became more and more significant, because I had these clients that I was working with that were seeing incredible results, that I was just having so much fun getting on calls with and supporting them in any way that I can, and helping them navigate their fitness goals through crazy life changes, having another kid, having to move cross country, changing jobs, having crazy work trips, vacation, like you name it, all the things that I know a lot of men struggle with, because those curveballs that life throws at you become the reason that you kind of put fitness on the back burner. You lose the momentum that you've built, and then you're kind of back at square one. So being able to be that accountability and that support for like a very small handful of guys, since I was still working my full-time job, I think that gave me the confidence to take this little thought that I had in the back of my mind of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to like do something on my own and really go all in on like helping dads in a very specific way that I want to, because Train Hard, we have so many dads that were a part of that community, but we did a training app, and I think a training app is great for some people, but some people do want or require something a little bit more custom and dialed in to reach their goals. And I had seen firsthand at that point what the impact that I could have as a coach, and that gave me finally the the nudge to take the dive. And so I did that in October. I gave notice. Again, can't thank Jason, Matt, leadership at NC Fit and Train Hard enough for how supportive they were with receiving that news, and the offboarding and the transition. And I've stayed in touch with Jason since then, and he's always been a close friend of mine, will always be a close friend of mine, and he's been nothing but supportive on this journey. So definitely want to thank him. But November, December, and now we're sitting here January 28th. So I'm 90 days in to, just building this thing out on my own. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey in that I've had to learn more about, it's almost embarrassing to say this, but I've learned more in those 90 days about marketing than I did in my 2 years as a chief marketing officer for a established, and honestly, we built a cool brand. The team did a great job, and I was in charge of that. I'm very proud of that. But I would say that I've learned more of the hard skills of marketing because I've had to do every single little piece of it. So I think that, the reason I share that and the lesson there is it's been a very, it's been a stressful transition, but it's been very fun, and it's been rewarding in how much it's taught me, in that the quickest way to learn anything is to be 100% in the trenches. And I think that for a long time, I was in a position of leadership where I was, leading the direction of things, but not actually in it, turning on the ads, picking the verbiage we used, creating all the content. I was in charge of Train Hard and Jason Khalipa's content for a long time. And even though I was in charge of that, it was very delegated as to writing captions and editing the videos and all of that. And now that for my own brand, I'm literally filming, editing, writing, posting, everything. You learn so much about, and I can go back and do my job 10 times better now just because of the things that I've learned, because I've had to do everything on my own. And so that's been a really, really good lesson for me on how you learn stuff. And it's I'm the biggest believer now in trial by fire, and nothing gets you up to speed quicker than, hey, this needs to be successful. You need to figure it out. And there's no offloading any of it. It doesn't matter what your bandwidth is. It doesn't matter what you have going on. You need to figure this out. These are your ad dollars that you're spending. This is, if you make the sale or don't make the sale, that's money that's, directly either going into your paycheck or not your paycheck. And that in itself has been just such a positive, because, and Gary Vee talks about this a lot, I can always go back and get a job. And the truth of the matter is, I would have so much more confidence after giving this a shot in, an interview environment. I think I could do a 10 times better job as a chief marketing officer or someone on a marketing team for a fitness company, just given everything that I've learned over the past 3 months. And that alone has been worth its weight in gold. Even if, Strong Father Co. doesn't turn into what I 100% want it to turn into and expect it to turn into. So yeah, just no better way to learn than to do the thing, and do the thing with the stakes being kind of as high as they can be. So that's been really fun, and but fun in a very challenging, uncomfortable way. But it has been, when I look back on it, it has been fun, because it's kind of perfect example of be careful what you ask for. A big reason that I made the whole career shift was because I felt I wasn't being challenged enough, right? I felt like my job got comfortable, and here I am, challenged and uncomfortable, which is exactly what I asked for. So don't complain about it. And I'm not complaining about it, but have there been moments where I've vented to my wife about how, maybe I made the wrong move here and this is so much tougher than I expected? Absolutely. But she knows that I'm just venting. And when I do take a step back, this is exactly what I asked for. And I think that betting on myself is the best decision I could have made, regardless of what this year turns out to be. My goal is to, at the very least, no matter what happens, commit to all of 2026 being like all in on Strong Father Co. I reserve the right to pivot if absolutely necessary and it becomes irresponsible because, I am the provider for this family. But so far, it very much seems like that's not going to be the case. And I'm super, super grateful for that. But that's the plan that was the plan when I left, is like, give this thing a year. Worst case, you can always go back and get a job. And I didn't believe this at the time, but I'm 100% convinced of it now. I'll be that much more prepared for the job, given the lessons that I've learned just in 90 days. So imagine what those lessons will be like in 60 days. In 6 months or in 9 months. So one of the questions that I did get, and this all kind of ties in, that I did get, because I think it was like 2 months ago or something, I put on social media like, hey, the podcast is coming back. Like, what would you like me to talk about on the podcast? Because at the time, I was going to record the first podcast episode for the Strong Father Co podcast. We had some time set aside. Ariel was going to be my guest in the first episode that I recorded, which, by the way, she's most definitely going to be probably the most regular guest that I have on this show. I found a way where it's easy for both of us to record in the same spot. But when the day we were supposed to record, with the setup we were trying to do, we just didn't have the right plug for the microphone. So it ended up not happening, and it got, punted to now, where I finally got my shit together and we're here recording the first episode. But when I put that little question sticker on social media that I was going to bring the podcast back, one of the questions, I didn't get many questions, but one of the questions that I got, and I remember, was an update on our faith journey. And I say our because it's been very much me and my wife's faith journey. And I know that religion, faith, and I think there's actually a very significant difference there, and I'll talk about that in a second, is something that for a long time I was very uncomfortable talking about. But I feel very much called to talk about it on the podcast because it's literally the Jason Khalipa podcast that sparked my faith journey. I had always, and I've talked about this before on the Jason Khalipa podcast, so I apologize if this is redundant, but it's important. And it was a question that I was asked, so I want to give full background. I grew up Catholic, and church was always just something that I felt was a chore. I never felt like I really understood why we were going and any kind of bigger purpose to it. It was also something where my mom was very adamant about us going to church on Sundays, but my dad, whether it was, I remember there was a while where it was strictly because of work, he just couldn't make it, he would work those days, but it was never something that was a huge priority for him. So that alone was a reason that as a family, we fizzled out on church. But now, knowing and being such a big advocate for the role that the father plays in setting the example for what the values of your family are and what things are important, what things aren't, I know that, my dad never being the one that prioritized church or faith in a significant way absolutely played a role in it. Just for me ending up being yeah, we're going to church. We have to go to church. You got to sit there, you got to sit quietly, and then hopefully it'll be over soon. And when it's over, it's over. And that was kind of my extent of growing up Catholic and growing up with any sort of faith or religion. So obviously, once I moved from the house, it was never something that I explored in any way, shape, or form, and was just kind of out of sight, out of mind. And I've definitely been curious about the role that faith should play in my life at different moments, right? It's something that you think about, but it was never something that I felt called to do in any way. Fast forward to probably late 2024 or early 2025, which is when the Jason Khalipa podcast started. And part of what we were doing with the Jason Khalipa podcast at the time when we launched it was to very much change the approach of that show to have a very specific type of guest and type of conversations that were very conducive to the Train Hard brand that we were building. And that was very much around a very specific type of man. It was trying to get guests on that exemplified a lot of these protect, provide, masculine qualities that we thought was at the bedrock of, the avatar that we wanted to speak to in a meaningful way with that brand. So that led to us having a bunch of guests that I genuinely looked up to and was so excited to talk about, and not necessarily talk to them because faith was such a big part of their lives, but talk to them because they were like incredibly like successful, accomplished, seemed like really good dads, really good husbands, strong family values, like just like men that I wanted to be more like. And you go through like 5-10 of those conversations, and we would always get to like, what is the foundation that like helps you be a better husband and be a better father and like do all of these things? Like what's at the foundation of you being a successful businessman? What's at the foundation of like, this thing that you've built? And time again, it came to faith. Like it was like my faith like is in my relationship with Jesus is the most important relationship in my life. And that has helped me in all of these areas that I looked up to them for. I looked up to them because of how they conducted themselves as fathers, as husbands, as business owners, as athletes even. And when we got to like, hey, like what's your why behind all this? It just always came back to having a strong faith. And if there's one thing that I think has served me really well in my life is like just the very simple understanding that when you see the people that you want to emulate and be like doing certain behaviors, you should at least explore those behaviors. Like it seems pretty black and white. Like if I want to be more like all of these men that we had as guests on that podcast, and they all are answering this one question almost exactly the same way, there's got to be something there. Like it's simple pattern recognition. And so that and the podcast really kind of like got my gears turning in a way that hadn't for years, about like, okay, where do I even fall on what I believe and faith and like religion? Like is it going back to like, I grew up Catholic? Like is it trying to figure out like, do I find like a church near like what? And I still haven't like I have no answers. Like I guess that's the thing that like maybe many people listening that have gone either through a similar journey or have been on faith journey for a lot longer than me, is like the more you look into it, maybe the more questions you have. But here's what I can share in the actual update on kind of where we're at now. My North Star with kind of figuring out this thing has been like, does it make me feel good? And not feel good in like a quick dopamine type of way, right? Like what just makes me feel lighter and have more gratitude and brings me closer to my wife, and just what seems to elevate me. It's so interesting, right? Because even trying to explain this, I think what it comes down to is like, what makes me feel more spiritually healthy? And for someone that's been in the fitness space for a decade plus, like it's so black and white when you get fitter, right? Performance increases, body fat decreases, like your progress pictures look different, like super black and white. Like you're on a fitness journey, nutrition journey, like there's very black and white ways to measure, like, are the things you're doing working? Even for mental health, which is maybe a little bit more abstract, and I think it ties closely to spiritual health, it's, are you feeling happier? Are you feeling more fulfilled? Is the anxiety quieting down? Is the, even that to me seems a little bit more black and white. But I think that what I'm trying to put into words, and I'm having a hard time, is I let my North Star with this journey just be how spiritually healthy I felt. And it's tough for me to describe what that has felt like. And I'm sure maybe some people can just relate. But with that being my North Star, the things that I quickly realized were as soon as I started praying, I felt better. And I can't like explain it any better than that. As soon as I started praying about decisions I had to make, I felt better about the decision once I made it. As soon as I started praying with my son every single night, like I just felt better as a dad. More recently, as soon as we started praying, and saying grace and expressing gratitude before dinner at night as a family, like that just feels better. And we went to church for the first time, and the community that we've kind of connected with there, and the friends that I've made, and the fact that we feel a connection to like where we live here in Seguin, Texas, in large part due to connections that we've made by going to church and talking about faith and connecting with people that have similar values to us. Like all of that has just like I feel better about where we live. I feel better about the people we surround ourselves. It all just feels better. And that to me has been what I've let guide the decisions that we make around this kind of like area. Like, do we want to pray more? Do we want to join a church? Do we want to join a smaller church that feels more intimate? Like all these little things that we've done have been guided by just that. And it's been a very as much as it's not as black and white as your progress pictures and your performance and the number on a scale like it is with fitness, it's been pretty black and white to me. Like the gut feeling of this feels right has been pretty black and white every step of the way. And there's been like zero ambiguity with like, oh, I'm really glad that we go to church now every Sunday. I'm really glad that me and Ariel have bought Bibles. And like while we're like, you want to talk about things that I fizzle on and on about, like I've tried to dive in as much as I can, but like even just taking the step of like, hey, we own it, we have it in the house, and we'll talk about it after church feels better. And so that alone has, I think, been the biggest change for me looking back at 2025, and I owe the podcast to that 100%. So I felt called to share that and give that update here, as much as I know that maybe some people have little interest in talking about this stuff, or it's an area that's uncomfortable. Yeah, I just thought that sharing that, and I don't know where that will lead. We started a Bible study course that Ariel signed us up for, and that's been fun. It's been fun to like connect with the type of people that like lead a Bible study course, like people that I think in the past I would have been, for whatever reason, like resistant to even like connecting with, like, why are you trying to teach me about this? Like I think that for a long time when you grow up without faith, anyone that wants to talk about it, like it immediately comes off as pushy because it's this very like sensitive topic that, you like shouldn't talk about. So like if I were to know that like, oh, you lead a Bible study, it's like, keep your distance because you're going to want to push this thing on me that like I'm not interested in. So it's been so interesting now to sign up for something like a Bible study where Roger and Leah, who are the older couple who lead it, just like the sweetest people that me and Ariel talk about this all the time. Like they give me the most like grandparent vibes ever. Like you just feel like they just genuinely care. And that alone, and spending like an hour every week in the room with them, has again felt good. I have no additional words to explain why we're doing it or why we're going to continue to do it, aside from it's just felt good. And it's felt good consistently, even during this like chaotic season in life where like there's like some financial stresses because of like the house, and like a lot of like moving pieces with the kids, and like their routine being disrupted, and it's definitely been like a little bit more stressful. Like I feel like all things around faith have just like kept us grounded, and everything else just doesn't feel as chaotic as maybe it could be if we didn't have that foundation. So that's the update on faith, and I appreciate Matt who asked that question. I remember Matt, who interacts with me a lot on social media, which I really appreciate. He actually sent me an email recently because he's off social media, so I appreciate him finding ways to connect, and also kudos for staying off social media. But yeah, Matt, you know who you are. I appreciate the faith question, and there's your update, man. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Okay, so we are 45 minutes in, and I haven't gotten to any of the meat and potatoes that I wanted to talk about from like a providing value perspective. But I don't know, maybe you guys or it being the first episode, I would hope that, just some general updates and giving everyone a little bit of context on like where I've been, what I've been doing, and Strong Father Co. being something that I am so excited about. I have the most incredible clients, by the way. One of the things that has become very clear to me, and so I also joined a business coaching mentorship. One of the things that I have 100% learned in my professional career and my career as an athlete too, this actually probably the biggest learning lesson to this was my first marathon build when I was trying to break a 3-hour marathon, is the value of coaching. And this actually ties down to the confidence in launching coaching too. So the whole reason that I started doing one-on-one coaching was because I finally bit the bullet and signed up myself for a running coach. And that was such an eye-opening experience for me because I had always been resistant to paying someone to tell me what I think I already know. And for fitness, that was always such a why would I hire a coach? Like, I have access to, literally now with AI, unlimited amounts of information. Like, there is nothing someone will know that I can't look up. So why can't I spend the time researching and coming up with the ideal training program for me? Like, why would I need someone to do that? And that's such a ridiculous way of thinking, because information doesn't necessarily mean knowledge or practical knowledge. And I think especially with AI now, we have unlimited access to information, but actually discerning and sifting through that information and seeing what the most applicable information to adapt or to use for certain people in certain cases. I still think that that's something that, you need someone with firsthand experience in the thing you're trying to do and helping people with the thing you're trying to do that can help you apply that. That's the word I was looking for to apply the information in the most useful way possible. And so signing up for a running coach, just the accountability, the fact that I didn't have to try and figure out there's 2 schools of thought on how much mileage you should do training for a marathon. And there's pretty compelling cases for both. Which way do I go? That decision fatigue and having to make those decisions, I think that alone, and outsourcing that to someone that I'm hey, you clearly know what you're doing. You've helped so many athletes reach the goal that I want to reach. You yourself are accomplished enough that you're well beyond the goal that I want to reach. So I am just trusting this process to you, and I don't have to do the well, do you go this way or do you go that way? Because the truth is, with so many goals, whether it's business goals or athletic goals, there are multiple roads that get you from point A to point B, and you can spend so much time hyper analyzing which is the best road for you instead of just having someone say, hey, based on my experience, this is the best road for you, and then holding you accountable to stay on that road, especially because all roads aren't linear, especially when things get rocky or, there's specific reasons why you want to pivot or not trust the process and try another road. We end up being our own worst enemies because we can't stay committed to the road that is going to get us from point A to point B the quickest. And having a coach can both help you pick the quickest road and then help you stay on that road. So signing up for a running coach opened my mind to the value of having that, even though, we all have access to the same unlimited information. That gave me the confidence to then say, hey, coaching is very necessary, so I'm going to provide this service because I can do that for a certain type of person. And then when I decided to launch my own business, that made it kind of a no-brainer that I was I should get a business coach. Like, this is something where stakes are very high. Yes, it's going to be probably a scarier upfront investment than I'd like it to be, and it was. But the value of not trying to figure out every little thing on my own and have, both a coach and be part of a mentorship and a community of people that have already accomplished the goals that I want to accomplish or are on the same journey, the value of that is immeasurable. And so I signed up for a business coach. And the reason that I was bringing that up, what was the reason I was bringing that up? The reason I was bringing that up was because my business coach, it's a piece of advice that he gave me or that he preaches. And that's when I went on this whole explanation of coaching and why coaching is so valuable. Oh, that's what it is. So a big part of what my business coach teaches is to find and target all of your messaging towards the type of person that you enjoy working with the most. And that has been the single most powerful lesson that I've learned and put into action in launching Strong Father Co. And that I am looking for a very specific type of guy that I want to work with. I am looking for a dad that wants to not settle for, hey, I just need some workouts, or I just want to lose a little bit of weight, or I just want to be a little healthier. I think that's great. But there are other people that can kind of help you with that. Like, I'm wearing this hat. Like, I want dads that don't want fatherhood to define that their prime is behind them. And again, does that mean that you're going to lift as much or more than you did in your 20s? Does that mean that you're necessarily going to run faster than you did in your 20s? No. But just this mentality of never letting fatherhood be the reason that what you define as your prime is behind you is the type of guy that I want to work with. And that messaging and trying to find that person has led me to, a bunch of new clients that I work with. And I freaking love these guys. I love talking with them. I love connecting with them because we have so much in common at like the foundation and the bedrock of what motivates us to be dads and to be husbands and to train for the races that we're training for, whether it's a half Ironman, a marathon, a half marathon, wanting to PR, wanting to, accomplish things that we didn't think we could accomplish as busy dads, wanting to wake up early in the morning to get the workout in, wanting, workouts to do at a hotel gym while you're traveling because you don't want to lose momentum. Like, that is the type of guy that I just enjoy getting on calls with. And it's made my life so much easier because nothing about coaching yet, and I hope it never gets to this point, feels like a chore. It's a lot of work. Let me back up. There are definitely things about business and what I'm doing that feel like a chore, but it's definitely not any interactions that I have with my clients, with my athletes, or guys that are thinking about coming on board as coaching. And I know the coaching isn't going to be a fit for everyone. And I've had awesome conversations with guys that are just like, hey, either now is not the right time, or maybe the investment just doesn't make sense based on where they're at. And I completely understand that. And I think that I've taken this approach of like, hey, if you're ready to dive all in, like, let's do it. And that's just led me to this like collection of guys that I get to communicate with on a daily basis. We get on calls all the time that are just like right up my alley. And selfishly, I get so much out of like having them in my ecosystem now as guys that I get to like regularly touch base with and communicate with, and that are incredibly inspirational guys in their own right. I might be their coach in the fitness space because, I have the skill set to teach them something there, but there are so many dads and guys that are well advanced and beyond me in different journeys, right? Like their careers, like what they're doing, the age of their kids, that I can't wait for the opportunities to like explicitly ask them questions about stuff like that, or just like learn from the stuff that they share with me. Selfishly, it's been an incredible route to go. And having a business coach suggest and really emphasize how important it is to like, hey, you're going to build a successful business if you love your business. You're going to build a successful business if you build it off the foundation of working with your ideal client. Like, that piece of advice alone, I would say, was worth what I paid for the business coaching and mentorship program, because it has got me to a point where I am so fired up to keep building this thing because I know the guy that I'm trying to attract is the guy that I like literally just want to spend more time with. And that's awesome. So still haven't gotten to the underfueling protein, carbs, and creatine. So I think we'll do this. We're 55 minutes in. I think we'll call it here for episode 1 of the Strong Father Co podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this. In future episodes, I am planning to get more into the nitty gritty of stuff that you could be like, oh, I'm going to implement this into my training, into my nutrition and all that. But I think that given that it was the first episode, I really wanted to just kind of give everyone an update on where life is, where I'm at, what I'm building with Strong Father Co. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Please, the one favor I have, especially now early on as I'm trying to build this, is if you can please subscribe to the podcast on wherever you're listening, add a rating, add a review, share it with a friend, any of those things or all of those things. I would greatly appreciate it. You guys have already been so incredibly supportive. The fact that you're listening here, I am incredibly grateful for. But if there's one thing that's going to help get this show off the floor a little bit, get it into more ears, and hopefully build something incredibly special as I commit to weekly episodes here, it's for you to subscribe, like, rate, review, and share. So any of those things or all of those things. And I appreciate you guys. Hopefully next episode will be me and Ariel. We always have great conversations. We're always like, man, we should get the podcast going again. Fun fact, I started a podcast with Ariel way back in, I think, 2018, 2019, the West Coast Advantage podcast. So she's my OG podcast co-host. So stay tuned for those episodes. Those will be really fun. Like I said, I texted Dennis, definitely hoping to have him on a future episode. Leroy, the guy who has become a really close friend of mine and who we run around in circles every morning, not every morning, every Wednesday morning. We were actually just talking today. We haven't missed a week since we started training together. The guy's an awesome runner, just ran a 2:45 marathon. He knows a lot about running, but he also has a really cool story for why he got into running and why it's become a full circle moment. He just qualified for Boston. So I'm hoping to qualify for Boston so we can both run the Boston Marathon in 2027. But he's lined up as one of the guests. He has an awesome story. So looking forward to getting that episode recorded as well. But that's it, guys. 57 minutes of me yapping away. No water. So going to go drink some water now. I'm actually a little sweatier than I thought I'd be. It's always nerve-wracking to talk alone, but I really enjoyed this. I hope you guys really enjoy this. Please like, rate, subscribe, share, and we'll catch you next time.